Good afternoon, class. I am Engineer Victor Onsu. I'll be discussing the unit hydrograph. The unit hydrograph. The unit hydrograph. The unit hydrograph is defined as the hydrograph of a direct runoff uniformly over a basin or a catchment area and at a uniform rate for a specified duration in hours. A unit hydrograph is defined as the hydrograph of a DRH, that is direct runoff hydrograph, of uniformly over a basin. A basin can be a watershed, a catchment area, also called a catchment area, at a uniform rate for a specified duration in hours. So a unit hydrograph is basically an hydrograph of a direct runoff hydrograph which is uniform over a basin and at a uniform rate for a specified duration of time. So a unit hydrograph can be represented as this, as a graph of discharge in meter cube per seconds and time in hours. So for a unit hydrograph, the rainfall depth is 1 centimeter. It's a unit. That is why it's called a unit hydrograph. The rainfall depth is 1 centimeter. It can be 1 millimeter, it can be 1 micrometer, but it must be a unit value. So a graph of discharge in meter cube per seconds against the time in hours is plotted. Then we'll get this. Once it's plotted to scale, we'll get this. And the time taken from this point to this point is D in hours. That is D hours. So this is the time taken, D hours, and this is the rainfall depth, 1 centimeter. It's a constant, 1 centimeter, but the time changes. So this, I can say this is a DR unit hydrograph. That is DH unit hydrograph. That is a DH unit hydrograph. If D is 6 hours, then it becomes what? A 6 hours unit hydrograph. If D is equal to 8 hours, it becomes an 8 hours unit hydrograph. If D is equal to 4 hours, it's called what? A 4 hours unit hydrograph. So this is just the definition of a unit hydrograph. Then there are 2 basic assumptions in unit hydrograph. There are 2 basic assumptions in unit hydrograph. The 2 basic assumptions in unit hydrograph are: 1, assumption of units hydrograph. The first assumption is the time invariance. So the time invariance is the first assumption of the unit hydrograph. Then the second assumption is the linear response. This is the second assumption of a unit hydrograph. The first assumption is the time invariance, and the second assumption is the linear response. The time invariance, we have to keep this in mind, that the hydrograph, the unit hydrograph, is constant regardless of the time of storm. Is constant regardless of the time a storm is occurring. If maybe we have a storm occurred at, let's say, 10 a.m. in the morning, and another storm happens what? Let's say 2:30 p.m. in the evening. Then the unit hydrograph is constant at this time and also a constant at this time. So that's what we are trying to say. That there is what? A time invariance. That is, there is no variation in the time, in the value with respect to time. So there is no variation in the value of the unit hydrograph with respect to time. So the second is, I'll draw a diagram to show the time invariance and the linear response, maybe in our next class. So the linear response is that the hydrograph input is always proportional to the output of the hydrograph. Now, we don't expect a unit hydrograph to be less than, let's say, a 2 centimeter DRH. A 2 centimeter DRH should be bigger than a unit hydrograph. So, we can draw a graph, let's say a graph of time in hours and discharge in meter cube per second. So if this is the hydrograph, this is this, let's say is a 6 hours, let's say it's a 6 hours, the duration of the storm is 6 hours, and let's say this is okay, let's say this is a unit hydrograph. Let's say the hydrograph has what? 1 centimeter. That is the rainfall depth. That is rainfall depth as 1 centimeter for 6 hours. So if we say this is the 6 hours unit hydrograph, that is UH. If this is the 6 hours unit hydrograph, then we can have, let's say, a 2 centimeter, let's say a 2 centimeter storm. Let's say we have a 2 centimeter storm for 6 hours duration also. So what I'm trying to say that if this is a 1 centimeter storm, then, and this is a 2 centimeter storm, so we expect the 2 centimeter storm to be bigger than what? Than the 1 centimeter unit hydrograph. The peak of the 2 centimeter will be higher than the peak of the unit hydrograph. So there is a linear response between what? The 6 hours unit hydrograph and what? The 2 centimeter 6 hours DRH, that is direct runoff hydrograph. So this is all for today. If you find this information or this lecture helpful, please you can quickly subscribe, like, and share this video. Thank you very much.